China has highlighted people-centered, high-quality development as Chinese President Xi Jinping encouraged this concept to improve people's livelihoods. What kind of people-centered development is China pursuing? How does it reflect democracy with Chinese characteristics? Joining me today from Memphis in the U.S. is Professor Josef Mahoney at East China Normal University, and from Beijing, Professor Wenping, Senior Research Fellow at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Welcome to both of you. Joseph, let me go to you first. We've heard this too often and too many times that the two sessions are China's rubber stamp parliament and a political political body, CPPCC, that is largely symbolic. Your thoughts on these Western characterizations?
I think we have to start with the very different concept of democracy that has emerged in China over the years as these two institutions themselves have emerged and begun to function as the two sessions together. The main goal in China throughout the course of modernity is to establish itself as a strong nation, and we hear this in terms of the rhetoric of national rejuvenation. And to do this, to advance it for the good of the masses, this has required a certain amount of political discipline that minimizes some aspects of democracy, but maximizes others. And I think that this is where we see the NPC and the CPPCC functioning together. With the CPPCC, you draw in expertise from all walks of life across China who can consult with and advise the national legislature as the NPC meets to establish the legal agenda, the new laws for the country for that year.
Professor He, how would you explain the two sessions and this year's sessions in particular to the global audience?
Well, two sessions is a typical the style of China's democracy with Chinese characteristics. We have been always saying democracy cannot be understood as some fixed model, saying only the election can be called democracy. Actually, now we have seen clearly there is something wrong also in terms of those Americans' democracy and also some European countries. They are also facing some difficulties. So no single model right now can be said it's a perfect one. So it needs to develop itself. So why not some other country like China and Russia and even some African countries and Asian countries, they develop their own style of those democracy. So I think like two sessions itself proved clearly. Now all those like deputies and also those CPPCC, those people, they have prepared very well with their proposals regarding to their own background. Those proposals has based on whole year those very deep those investigations to consult with people and also to check around and talk with people on the ground. So it's coming from the root area, from the grassroots people. So it's not saying just fighting with each other like opposition party with ruling party or those congressmen fighting with each other there in those parliament. So we have a different way, but all in all, because people, we talk about people-centered. So you need to regard, put the people at the first. For example, last year, this pandemic, was very serious in Wuhan, and then all the country we put, people's life first, and other things you have to step back. So this is I think, the true meaning for democracy.
Well, Joseph, do you agree? I mean, obviously the Chinese and Western scholars have different interpretations of what human rights entail. In the West, people talk about, in the US in particular, people talk about the right to protest, to assemble, to speak up against power, and to vote, of course. But in China, Beijing argues that the right should also include the right to food, shelter, health, security, and safety. Can the two sides ever come together and reconcile with their differences?
Well, I think it comes down to two or three issues. The first is it's good to have ideals. It's good to move towards those ideals. But if those ideals don't actually perform and it actually leads people into danger or into a backward situation, that can hardly be said to be normatively democratic. And I think that's one of the key points that the Chinese system wants to make. I think we have to acknowledge that both the Western tradition and the Chinese tradition have a profound positive regard for humanity, for the human experience. They do have some traditional differences, but most of the differences that we see in the modern period come from the different experiences that China and the West have had. And in large measure, we should recognize that some of the aspects that the West criticizes in China were actually instigated by Western aggression. You know, this need to create a strong nation and to resist foreign meddling in order to protect not only the greater good, but to simply survive. It was, you know, China was facing existential challenges from external forces, the century of humiliation, and we're only really seeing China emerge in the last 20 to 30 years from that dark period. And of course, there's still some vulnerabilities. So I think along the way, of course, China has discovered, as it's had to deal with these challenges and to survive these dangers from the West, it's not only rejected the Western path, it thinks it's come to a different solution, a different path altogether, and it's committing itself to that, particularly given the success it's had in the last few decades, and underscored again by its capacity to resolve the crises associated with COVID.
Right. Professor He, let me go back to you. During the 14th five-year plan that is deliberated this time around, a key concept was emphasized. That was people-centered, high-quality development. How does this concept trickle down to average citizens like you and me?
Well, I think this high quality development not only mentioned to economic those development different form. If you look carefully, before we just talk about economic, those high quality development, now goes to everywhere, every aspect in our social life, including like you and me, our daily life. So which means very detailed. For example, before maybe you just get rid of breakfast and rush to your office, right? Because the time constraint. But now you need to also focus on those daily life quality. Maybe you should have a very good arrangement about your time. Yeah, this is all the things come from all the aspects of your life. Not only even for the job, for your research work, like my work. I also need to have a very good arrangement about what time, how many days, how many hours a day, and maybe how many hours others to do like physical training, whatever. So I just go to talk about myself, and also talk about all the people in our country. Now we have already made clear, even last year, saying now our main, the contradiction in our social life, that is this demanding, the increasing demand for the life and for the people, and with this uneven and not balanced economic development. So which means our economic development, its goal is to meet people's increasing demand. So that's the people-centered. It's not saying to focus on GDP, how far it is. Before, we just focus on the speed of the GDP. But now we no longer chase for this high speed. We chase for this high quality, anti-pollution, how to reach this carbon, those goals. So all of that, environment and people's life, all this living in the harmony, this kind of situation, that's the goal we need to chase.
Well, Joseph, do you look at that way too? I mean, you lived and taught in China for quite a while, and how do you look at the situations on the ground? For example, China proposes such concepts as no one should be left behind, the people first, life first. Do they constitute democracy as China defines it?
I think that what they aim for is a certain type of social justice. And I think that I think we get hung up on this word democracy and democracy in a particular form. But what we really have to look back at is, are we creating a system of governance that's actually alleviating human suffering, promoting human progress, and leading to social justice? I think one of the things that because I lived in Beijing and then I lived in Shanghai and technically still do, I think one of the things that all of us are very aware of is how much the environment has improved in both cities over the last 10 years and even the last 5 years. And this really directly traces to new standards for assessing leaders, a new development model, a shift in perspective at the highest level, and it's really responding to a public cry from the people themselves for cleaner air, cleaner water, a cleaner life. And so I think this is one example. It's a powerful example, and it tracks with human progress globally.
Yeah, you know, a high-ranking Chinese official spoke during the 46th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council and talked about protecting the rights of women, children, and the elderly, and also other socially disadvantaged people here in China. Professor He, how do you think these two sessions that's just concluded reflected those aspirations of China for these socially disadvantaged groups?
Yeah, of course, this is one of the focus for this, just to wrap up two session discussions. Especially like during those sessions, we have just celebrated the International Women's Day. So International Women's Day, I noticed now there is an increasing number of those CPPCC members and also deputies. So this is one of the proof now that Chinese women has participated in the political, this consultative process in a unprecedented way. And also in the daily life, like in research work, like in all kinds of work life, we have seen more and more those women's, this profile. And for others, like elderly people, the pension fee also is one of the heated discussed topic in the two sessions. I see from like Premier Lee's report, and we have seen now the pension fee will be increased again. This is already, I think, 17th times now continuously increase improvement. So you can see, even though last year China's economy also suffered from this pandemic, but we still focus on, put the money reallocated to increase those pension fee for olders, and also like medical insurance, those coverage now has been covered. All of the people, including rural people, I think this is the largest health insurance program we have ever seen in the whole of the world. Now in the United States, you see the Obamacare now even has met those difficulties when the Trump administration sworn in, and then Obamacare has been met this deadlock. So that's different. So in China, so those fragile group, those people, women and elder people, now they have been taken care.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much. Joseph Mahoney joining us from Memphis, Tennessee, and Professor Wenping from Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. With that, we come to the end of this edition of The Point. As always, follow us on Facebook and Twitter using the handle Liuxin in Beijing. Download the CGTN app to watch our program, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. On behalf of the team, thank you for watching.